So I'm going to give you just a little snippet of a sister friend who we had recognized here in Pasadena. Before I came on board, there were a number of sister friends. I came in as the founding executive director because we had a little sordid past, but nonetheless, we had a program director, but not an executive director. And I found out that Priscilla and I went to the same church, and I was buying an interview suit at one of the old Macy's here. And she said, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm interviewing for this new position. She said, well, I'm a sister friend. I'm part of this organization. I said, oh, really? So over the years, Priscilla and I have stayed in contact. She's still in contact with this, the young mother. She's not a young mother anymore because the baby is 14 years old, actually 15 years old. But the fact is that I saw her because Priscilla now 10 years ago decided when her daughter graduated from high school that she was going to do missionary work, and she has been out of the country for 10 years. So I caught her in December, and she lives in New Zealand. She started in Australia, moved to New Zealand, got married. So I guess that's something for missionary work, got married. And they do some work in the Philippines. So anyway, she was here. And so we were at the Cheesecake Factory, and I said, pull out your laptop, and I'm just going to type. You start talking to me about why you did this, because I need to know, why were you involved? And I just want you to read her words, you know? And so it meant a lot to me to think about that woman to woman, they were able to connect. And yes, there's a spiritual overtone to this, because remember, she's a missionary. You know, but the fact of the matter is, she was able to say, my struggles are no different from yours. They may be on a different context, but there's things that I don't know. I have to exercise my faith. I've got to talk to somebody. I have to pray about this. So the things that you're talking about, if all that I can tell you what I do, and it just brought tears to my eyes as I was typing, because I recognized that really is the flavor of being a sister friend. You share what you know. And also she got pinned. I'm on this journey of pinning people from our organization. In historic West Adams, we traveled down the 110 freeway to historic West Adams for one major reason, because I moved from Pasadena and moved back to Los Angeles. And the second reason is that there was no place in Pasadena, there was no African American owned organization that owned their own building. And I connected with a friend of mine who runs an after-school learning program. They own their own building. But what's most important is that we met when our children were in the 3rd and the 4th grade. And she was the person who we went through parent advocacy together. And so what we discovered is that when the unusual suspects come together, what that means is that you bring two different groups of people and you recognize that there is a trend. And there's a trend that took place. So I'm going to fast forward what we decided here in our collaboration, because what's most important is that we brought together a birth outcomes collaboration. Tony found out and saw the link between the children who had special needs, and let's not say special needs, let me back away from that, who are underperforming, have learning disabilities. As a result of our work, and by now when we came to Historic West Adams, we had a relationship with USC, Center for Premature Infant Health and Development. And so we were able to bring together that when women have preterm and low birth weight babies, that we all know that there may be learning disabilities, hearing problems and whatnot, but she had all of these children in her after-school learning program. So we started to help her to put together asking questions to the mothers about having a healthy baby. Now, Tony has a quote. I'm going to put it up here, but the most important thing is that there are time and time again, women have said, oh yeah, I had a healthy pregnancy, so tell me about the pregnancy. Well, my baby was born 2 months early. You don't know what a healthy pregnancy is. Oh yeah, you know, I had high blood pressure. I had to have a C-section. But you just told me you had a healthy pregnancy. Or the stories that really happened afterwards is that, yeah, my baby was born small, but, I lived in this building and it had mold in it and mold was in the bed. And then they go to school. So we find all these things out. And so here she is hit with supporting children that had the initial early stages of my work. And now we got to see them grow up at 7, 14, 15 years old. There's a young student who wears a hearing aid. He's 14. He reads at the 2nd grade level. And his mom basically came in the other day because she ran into my office and she said, oh, yeah, I had a healthy pregnancy. But, he came early. Well, how early? Well, about, I guess they said 32 weeks. And what I say this to you lightly is that our work is this is just the tip of the iceberg of our work. It is so important to really help mothers to understand the condition that they're in, because they take that condition to their children, they take that condition to the next part of their lives. But because if we don't ask and engage, how can I help you? What is going on? They're going to say, it's okay. It's all right. Everything is fine. He was preterm, but he's fine. And being fine is relative. That's not my role to be able to diagnose our families, but I am asking you, I am begging you to engage with families, particularly those doulas that are in the room. How many doulas do we have in the room? Okay. It's so important to support her because, you're going to find out if she has support. You're providing practical support for her, but when your piece is over, she may not have anybody supporting her. And she's going to talk to you. You become her priest, actually, because she's confiding in you about things that are happening in this pregnancy, the hope and the dreams that she has. But really, we're all here in the community to help our families. So here's Tony's quote. I think what really is sobering about this quote is that because she makes a link with after-school programs, that the dropout rate is now in middle school. It's not high school any longer. So if you can't see the blackboard and you can't hear what's going on, and mom and dad, it's not about you because they're doing something. I'll give you an example. I know these sound really crazy, but this is where people live. There is a mom who has a child who is suffering from sleep deprivation. He's 7. And so when we figured out, she says, well, he's afraid of the dark. So she tells mom, he's afraid of the dark. Well, he has this 52-inch flat screen TV in this room. And it's like, it doesn't work, but I can't sleep with the laptop light on. So he's 7 years old. He's afraid of the dark. He's bouncing off the walls. He doesn't go to sleep. He comes to the center. He's knocked out. So if children are struggling through that, it's not just because of the child. It's because of what's happening in the family. And then if that's happening across the board, day in and day out, they just decide, forget it. So I don't know what the rates are for dropout, but I think we need to really pay attention that children are dropping out of school in the 7th and 8th grade. Okay, I talked a little bit about Farron, and I talked about a little bit about UCSB. And what's most important about this is that I'm really proud of her. I'm glad that we were able to truck up to UC Santa Barbara and to recognize that if it takes one family that we have to support, then we need to support her and to let her know that she is not alone. Because what's most important, she's from South LA. So all that health behavior she took with her to Santa Barbara. It's not Santa Barbara, it's how she ate. It's how she related to her family. She has all sisters, and all of her sisters have children. And they all had children as teenagers. So for the fact that she is a college graduate is a really big deal. But it meant that she had to go out of LA to achieve that. Because if she stayed here, like if I would have stayed here, it wouldn't have happened. Oh, sorry. Now, Meredith, see? We just traveled up to UC Santa Barbara just 3 Mondays ago. And it was really important for us to go on a fact-finding trip because I let our faculty and CBO advisors understand that when we come together and we talk, things happen. And what we recognize when we were talking with our students is that, you know, this whole issue of culture and race, which is really big on a baby boomer generation, is not a big deal for millennials. So we were like, okay, here we go. You know, you mean to tell me all things that we stood for and what we do is not important to you? But what happens is that we need to understand where people live. Because when we understand where people live, we're able to support them and help them. And our students, for us, they're the next generation of leaders and scholars that we're mentoring. So it's really important to make the work that we do real. And that's what we did here. And these are just some of the comments from our collaboration. I'm going to swing through these next two phases here because I told you a lot of stories. But really, this is not the... We're going to breeze through this part. Our goal is really around mentoring the next generation of leaders. In this particular group, we trained in the March of Dimes Prematurity Awareness Campaign right here in this room. And from May of last year through last Saturday, in that program alone, we have trained 82 young professionals, East Los Angeles Community College nurses, to students at CSUN, students at USC, students at Cal State, UCSB. We have trained, we're making this message out to the folks to say, you know what, if you care about this, be a part of the solution. And they are a part of the solution. This particular quote is my favorite. I don't know it by heart, but it's my favorite, so I'm going to pass it by. But I think it's important here just to tell my story. This is me. I was 20 years old. My son was 8 months old. And I remember distinctly that there were only 3 people on campus who said I was going to make it. There are only one person today who is still alive, and I went to a conference on campus, and with tears in my eyes, I told him thank you. And he looked back at me, and he says, Wenonah, thank you, because you were one of my best students. So it's really important, the message and the language that we say to people can save their life, because I had no idea that I would be a champion for this work. But because I understand passionately what it means when people don't support you, even your own family. I know what it means to be in the workplace, and I had 2 child care bills and rent to pay before I bought groceries. I'm a young executive. So I know what being, what's that hidden hunger? I know what that looks like. And so that means, you know, when you're suited and booted, you don't tell anybody, you know, that you're eating tuna fish sandwiches or you're not eating tuna fish sandwiches. I could tell you what I bought for $10 every week when I was a young professional. I could tell you what my grocery bill was because it was $10. That's what I had to do. And I worked in a high-profile profession. I worked in retail management. So, you know, we had to look good all the time. But my grocery bill was $10 because I had 2 child care bills and rent before I got to the next stage. So when I think about that, and I think about this was the last accolade that I had, which was just a couple of weeks ago, I'm humbled. I'm humbled by the fact that God would use me with all the drama that I was in the seat of in campus in 1974. I was on the seat of, because they didn't expect me to stay in school. So the same message that people gave Farron, who just graduated last quarter, was the same message they gave me. And you know what, truth be told, it's the same message we are, and we have to hold ourselves back from. It's like, how are you going to do that? You don't know who the next rocket science is going to be. And I got to tell you something. My son is a global citizen. He speaks 3 languages. He lives in China. He speaks Mandarin, Japanese, Spanish, and English, 4 languages. He's a global citizen. So what if our life went a different turn? So we don't know who that next generation is going to be. That's why it's important that we play with our children. It's important that we have that sister-friend relationship. And that sister-friend relationship for us has moved beyond just pregnant women. It's collegial. So really all of you, the women, are sister friends. We're going to treat you as